that how come this is moral? So you want
to discussion on that is fine.
Hi. A few observations. I think when you swap the roles, you can't refer to what he said earlier because he made conviction. His arguments with conviction because he was fighting for that point. So you can't say you said this earlier and these were the examples you give. What as a judge I'm looking for, and I don't know if the other judges are looking for that, is that what new are you getting to the table when you have reversed roles? What are the new points you put up which were not made by your opponent earlier? So that was one point. I think that in the next two rounds, I hope something like that comes to the table. And it's the conviction you put into, for the reverse point to make everyone feel that, I thought I was convinced the first time he made the argument, but now listening to him the second time, it looks like I was all wrong. It was not right the first time. I thought I was convinced, but I'm not. It looks like it's the other side which is right. So I think that's what's needed, and that's what maybe I don't know if the judges are all looking out for that. At least I'm trying to look for that. Yeah. So what do you get to the table the second time, which was not there when the argument happened first? So no need to refer to the first part of the discussion. If that was made, that was for that part, you should have countered it at that point of time. And that's over. So, just my observation.
No, that's fine, sir. And we respect all these observations. But, the swapping time is just, immediately change your boots. And moreover, we all know, as people who are experienced in IT, we know that both of these actually work in coherence. And thanks a lot, Chandresh sir, for bringing in all these topics, because the confusing part is that in all of these topics, most of them, what we have seen, both of the frameworks or the disciplines or standards which we are comparing in is very much integrated with each other. So it becomes at times, very imperative that, even if I am not taking up his points which he used to use, but still I am going to use that because that is obvious. So even if I am not going to use his points intentionally that I have noted down, let me use his points since I have changed the role. But that's imperative to come out because this is what our experience is. So sometimes it might, as a judge, it might, think that, okay, they're using the same points. But yes, most of the time it happens, it's imperative to come out. Even if he wouldn't have said that or I wouldn't have said that, it's because we are in the same industry and we know the facts how the things run. So.
But I think it's the genius to try to think what the other guy may not have thought of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that point is very well taken. That point is very well taken.
Yeah, that's what. There are so many national players in terms of different service providers. I don't want to name them, but there are many big service providers in India. All of them have got a toll-free numbers to help or service the end customers. When any customer had a problem, when they want to try out to reach out for a help, they mostly they don't differentiate between the corporate customer as an end user customers. But all of them have got a good standards. They are very well certified. If we talk as in corporate customers to them, they have the standards laid down. PC on off karo, shut down kiya gaya, which do not apply to the corporate problems. But mostly it may be applicable to the end users where the limitation of the knowledge, maybe some handling capacity may be limited. In that case, my question would be, though they are all standardized, they all got a certified and they got a good standards, everything. I don't think that framework may not be there. They should be definitely existing. What is your recommendation in that standardization versus the framework?
Very well brought out example. And I will go back to a point which I made during my debate. That framework's point of view. I think I should probably keep it very close. I'll refer to the point I made earlier during my debate. That frameworks basically point you to the right path and standard is a milestone. I don't think having just one of the two will really help. You need to have both working in tandem. So even if you are implementing a standard and the framework to support it, you need to have both. One point which I did not cover during my debate, and I'm bringing it up now, is one big benefit of chasing a standard is that processes are not diluted. A framework has a very good chance of being diluted simply because the easy way out is usually the option taken by the people who don't want to do something. As you point out, there are cases in organizations where the resources are not experienced, not capable, and in that case, having some level of discipline is essential, and a standard enforces that. So even if a framework has been used to improve something in the system, a standard will help make sure that it is actually implemented. So I will say both of them should actually be worthwhile being considered.
And just to add to what Ashish said, I mean, we all know that both of them are required because standard actually lays down the foundation at a very holistic level in the organization. Whereas processes and the procedures which are implemented or the frameworks which are implemented depends upon the different departments in a particular organization how they do. So that is one thing. And like he mentioned that somehow he missed to take out the easy way out for the frameworks that they can be diluted. I believe I took that example already, and just to make everyone aware, I took an example that in an incident management process, you are already combining the problem management process and just including a tab of whether you're doing a root cause analysis in the incident management console or not. This is actually breaching the integrity of the process altogether to ensure that I am just do it like that. So that was the point which I wanted to say, that in frameworks, actually the things are so much flexible. Standards are too much rigid, frameworks are too much flexible. So which is resulting into some nonsense, not all, but some nonsense. So flexibility should not be too much and rigidity should also not be too much. That without even looking what every department requires, you set up a standard. And processes, without having looking at what integrity it would be hitting to the organization who has developed that tool, you are just using the processes to customize that tool like any. So both of them are equally important to assure. Like in the army, we know that army is required to safeguard the boundaries of the country. But at the same time, a good police force is also required to ensure that within the country, the things are maintained and disciplined manually.
I need to comment something on the Ashish comments on two things. You mentioned very drastically saying that during the layoff, the process people were the first people to be out of the organizations. Something is, I don't know how many people are agreeing. I don't think so, number one. Number two, you have given some example of the companies, they were standardized and still the fraud has taken place. I think this is not the forum where we were trying to focus on those type of companies, because companies are having their own set of practices and set of governance actually. So the failure of the standard was not at all, and I think everybody is aware about it, and that's why the stocks has come in the pictures. So I personally feel, and maybe this forum, we should avoid such companies' name and all, because that's the reputation of the organizations. We should not talk about that. And second thing, if you see the number of people in terms of processes and the number of people who are the practitioners, the ratios are nearly 1:10 actually. So do you feel that losing the process champions in organizations will help? What is the definition of when the process people have become champions? Poor people have become process champions. See some data of 2006 to 2008 actually. I have seen many of the people who were good developers, because of the good salary rise, they were suddenly gone to the process. And they realized it actually, yes. And somebody was talking about the standard checklist and all. No, there are stores, a lot of standardized tools are available. That is reducing the work. So I think these type of comments are really disappointing actually, because you have a limited. What is the definition of process champions? Who are the process champions? They are the expert in their domain, expert, and they are trying to be a part of that particular forum, SCPG or QA or something. They are not somewhere from outsiders, but they are not freshers actually. If you consider the freshers as a part of the champions, then naturally your process will be weakened. It cannot be strengthened. The infrastructure of the people who are taking is wrong. They themselves are weak. And somebody was saying that, I think Ashish, you said, what is the qualification of a salesperson? If you look at the standards, if you see the formation of the standards, they talks very clearly about the competency. They talks about role metrics. any of the ISO standards, they talks or any CMI, they talks about it. Training. When we try to say training, we are not talking about induction training, we are talking about role-based training. So these are the frameworks, and I think what Christoph was told very clearly actually. When you try to switch out the roles, you try to maintain that whatever has been, you don't try to, in case what somebody has told about the, favor for the standards, we were looking at something different, new points. In terms of tools, in terms of the various challenges. Somebody was talking about me that, standards are there, then the failures are there. You mean to say that the failures will be there only because the standards are implemented? Do you have any document or something data that what are the root cause and what the companies are having? If you see any of the annual general meetings, annual reports, it has very clearly mentioned that number of grievances and number of complaints which has been rose by particular year. And in the annual general meeting, in annual report, they need to mention very clearly how many has been reported, how many has been resolved. That's the transparency of the organizations. If you see the Narayan Murthy's sentence out very clearly, each and every employee of my company who is going and they are going out on the premises, they themselves are assets. Okay, so I think that's
Right, sir.
One point before Ajay.
That's fine.
There was a point I made at the semi-finals. I think it's valid here. I think it's something. It's like I said. When you debate, there's a thing that if I can't baffle you with brilliance, I'll befuddle you with bullshit. Yeah, that means. See, it depends. What's said there is at that forum. It may be right. It may not be right. Yeah, it's for the opponent to counter it. Yeah. So if he can't pick on those points at that point of time, he suffers. Yeah. It's like he's going to get no outside help. He's there on his own. So if I can't, sometimes, it could be that there are not many points in favor to fight for. So I really can't baffle him with my brilliance. So can I confuse him and befuddle him with a little bit of, bullshit and get him confused so that all the good points he has on the other side, he's so confused that he can't put those points too clearly across. So I think sometimes in a debate, everything is fair in love and war, as they say. So it could be that it sometimes goes to that level, so you can't hold it against the party.
I would still like to say that I do accept with a very humble mind, and I have submitted an apology for having taken the name of any company which I shouldn't. I agree. I think I said it in the heat of the moment, and I probably something that I probably did the wrong thing. But the point I was trying to make was not that the standard has been. The point I was trying to make is, and as you also very eloquently just said, that eventually every standard is meant to assist an organization improve itself, maintain the discipline. My point at that point of time when I was arguing was that the same thing can be done by implementing a framework also effectively. You don't need a standard for it. On top of it, a standard also has an additional cost. So my point was, if you can get the same benefit out of a framework, then why implement a standard with an additional cost when you have that benefit? At no point I wanted to comment on any company or offend anybody in this audience. I myself associate with a lot of companies and a lot of people whom I know personally, and I know the reality of the business also. Everybody knows how the industry works. So first of all, a humble apology, and secondly, I didn't mean to say that standards are